Hello, YouTube watchers. On this video, we're going to try and work out what the greatest guitar riff is of all time. So, one of my patrons messaged me yesterday and they said, have you seen this Sky Arts documentary? Now, I haven't got Sky Arts, so I haven't seen it. I didn't know anything about it. But apparently Sky Arts have created a three-part series where they're going to explore the greatest guitar riffs of all time. Now, of course, in the same way as when I rank things and say what the best and worst is, that's a really silly thing to do. But in doing it, you get to explore interesting things musically, artistically. And I'm sure that's what Sky Arts are doing here. But they have published their 20 greatest guitarists of all time. So I'm going to jump on the back of that, right? And I am going to tell you what they've said riff-wise. Then we're going to have a chat about it. And they've also come up with their 20 greatest guitarists of all time. So this video really relates to the video I did a few weeks ago where I discussed the Rolling Stones 250 greatest guitarists of all time list, which seemed to have upset the internet greatly. And let's say we got two lists that may well upset you greatly. So shall we just go through their list? I'm on their website and I'll read a little bit of what they've said here about this series, because it does look very interesting, to be honest. Sky polls UK music aficionados to reveal the nation's favourite six-string riff of all time to celebrate the launch of the greatest guitar riffs on Sky Arts. Then it tells you what that came at number one, which I won't tell you. It goes, a poll of 2,000 music fans saw the list. So this is the general public have voted for this, right? So if I'm going to have any criticisms in a minute, I'm basically criticising the general public. But you should never criticise the general public. Sky Arts today reveals which iconic guitar solo takes the top spot according to the UK public. The survey results celebrate the greatest guitarists in a new three-part documentary series which premieres on Sky Arts and on Friday the 24th of November, which is already gone out, hasn't it? Because today's the 5th of December. The poll was commissioned by Sky Arts ahead of the launch of the greatest guitar riffs featuring Axe Lessons, Andy Summers, Tony Iommi and Nancy Wilson. Now, Andy Summers and Tony Iommi, they are riff meisters, aren't they, really? The thing I love about this, when you read this is standard. This is the way this is legacy media for you, because it's basically told you 3 times that Sky Arts are doing a documentary on the greatest guitar riff, and then they just keep putting in a little bit of information. And then the director of Sky Arts, Phil Edgar Jones, there's a quote from him, and he says, "Do not fret." Bit of a humour there for you. For here is the definitive rundown of the great guitarists of all time, showcasing top masters of the electric six-string. It's the ultimate air guitar playlist. What's happened to Sky Arts? They've gone all popularist. I love it, the way he said this is the definitive list. How can it be the definitive list? He hasn't got the superiometer. I need to let him know. Right? Only I've got the superior. Unless Phil Edgar Jones came around and stuck all this stuff in, well, then it will be the definitive list, but it cannot be the definitive list until we have run it through the superiometer. Whether it's the late great Jimi Hendrix, the stalwarts of such bands as Iron Maiden, Led Zeppelin, or the new artists coming through, rock and roll will never die. That's such a lie. Rock and roll has died. I don't know when it died. I think it was around about 2012. It was definitely pronounced dead. Although it was looking pretty rough before that, wasn't it? I really believe that the terminal, illness definitely started around about 1999. Rock and roll is dead. And the fact that Sky Arts is doing this documentary is definitely because rock and roll has now passed into music history, and it is like the proverbial parrot. It's dead, right? Dead as a dodo, to bring another bird in. The research found an overwhelming 83% said that they prefer music with guitars in it, which is why the charts and Spotify playlists are filled up with guitar music, with 81% saying a memorable guitar riff was vital to a good rock song. Can't argue with that, can you? And there's loads of stuff, loads of stuff. So I'm not going to go through it all. I'll put the link to this so you can have a look at it. Then it has a rundown of the episodes, and then we finally come to the greatest guitar riffs of all time. So you're ready for this? It's 22 actually. We've got 22. So at 22 we have Enter Sandman by Metallica. At 21 we have Paranoid by Black Sabbath. At 20 we have Thunderstruck by AC/DC. And at 19 we have Back in Black by AC/DC. At number 18 we have Day Tripper by the Beatles. At number 17 we've got Seven Nation Army by the White Stripes. At 16 Rebel Rebel by David Bowie. At 15 we have Johnny Be Good by Chuck Berry. At 14 we have Purple Haze by Jimi Hendrix. At 13 we have Whole Lot of Love by Led Zeppelin. At 12 we have Born to Be Wild by Steppenwolf. At 11 we have I Can't Get No Satisfaction by the Rolling Stones. At number 10 we have Sweet Home Alabama by Lynyrd Skynyrd. At number 9 we have Walk This Way by Aerosmith. At number 8, from the series, the aforementioned series, we have Every Breath You Take by The Police. At number 7 we have Beat It by Michael Jackson, and then in brackets Eddie Van Halen. Right? I'm trying not to say anything. At number 5 we have Money for Nothing by Dire Straits. At number 4 we have Smoke on the Water by Deep Purple. And at number 3 we have Sultans of Swing by Dire Straits. At number 2 we have Purple Rain by Prince. And at number 1 we have Sweet Child of Mine by Guns N' Roses. So the greatest guitar riff you now know, and this is definitive because he said it was, so you now know. So those they're just the nosy people, just want to know what the riff is, and they just clicked on the video. I went through that pretty quick. I never do that normally, do I? Now the reason I did it is because I know there's people out there, they just want to know the list. So I've given you the list. So those of you just want to know the list, right? I know I did waffle on for a little bit, but you've had the list. So bye. You can go off and down, put in your comments what you should have thought had been on the list. Bye. Not interested in the talk, are you? Haven't come for the talk, have you? No, haven't come for the talk, just come for the list. I just wanted to know which is the greatest list of all time. It's Sweet Child of Mine by Guns N' Roses. Happy now? No, I'm not happy. Guns N' Roses? I mean... There's better riffs on that album, Appetite for Destruction, that riff. I mean, Slash wrote that to take the mickey out of guitar riffs. I mean, how can that be number one when you've got Led Zeppelin and you've got like Black Sabbath, or whatever it is, right? Whatever it is, okay? So now, those of you still left, you want the critique, don't you? So your enjoyment on this video is going to come from me basically going through this and slinging mud at it. So shall I do that now? Shall we go back up? This is what YouTube's all about. Let's back up and do this again. Right, so let's start. Now, I have not read that list till I read it out to you. So I have not thought about this at all. So I'm going through it and I'm thinking, this list has aspects about it where I think it's real. They really have polled 2,000 people. Because why would you stick AC/DC at number 20 and number 19 together? That's something you wouldn't do if you were just trying to assemble something that made sense. And to have AC/DC so low, that seems strange. This is a real list that people have voted for. The three protagonists, Nancy Wilson, Tony Iommi and Andy Summers, Andy Summers is coming at number 8, but Black Sabbath, which are probably one of the greatest riff bands of all time, have one track in there, and it's Paranoid at number 21. And so I would have thought if they were trying to create a list which sort of pandered to the presenters, they haven't done that. So this is really what the general public think. Now the Sky Arts, I don't know whether it was a Sky Arts audience or whether they went to somebody and they were really polled real people, and this is what they came up with. And I think this is the case, and I actually think it's pretty good. I think there's some killer riffs on here, without a doubt, some of the greatest riffs of all time. What is the parameter that makes a good riff? Well, it has to be the riffs that have sort of entered into the sort of mainstream consciousness of everybody. And so many of these riffs are like that, but they're not all like that. All right? So let's just run through them again. I'll give you my thoughts. And I try and sling as much mud as I can at them so you will have an enjoyable time. So, shall I do that? So, number 22, Enter Sandman by Metallica. Metallica, Enter Sandman, Black Album. That's the one where they went all commercial. They should have picked something off Master of Puppets or Ride the Lightning. What about that incredible riff of Leper Messiah or For Whom the Bell Tolls or whatever, blah, blah, blah. You know, there's that, you know. I mean, what about the riff for One? With those double bass drums. Why pick Enter Sandman? Well, I'll tell you something. Right, I work with kids and I teach them, and they come in and they want to play rock music. Those kids that want to play rock music have a number of riffs that they all love, right? And a couple of these are on this list. But it's de rigueur amongst the youth to play Enter Sandman. This is a really, really classic riff, without a doubt, and I think that should be on the list. Right, number 21, Paranoid by Black Sabbath. Now, for me, as soon as you say riffs, I'm thinking Black Sabbath. They have produced some incredible riffs. And Paranoid is not one of them for me. Paranoid is like, what can I say? There's a period in heavy metal where it's been created. There's 3 albums that really do that. It's Black Sabbath's first album, Led Zeppelin's first album, and then in 1970, Uriah Heep's Very Heavy, Very Humble. That is the sort of, if we take that as the blueprint of heavy rock, heavy metal. The heaviest track on, and Deep Purple in rock as well. Sorry, Deep Purple in rock as well, of course. The heaviest track on the first of them, which is Led Zeppelin 1, is Communication Breakdown, and that is heavy metal. It's driving, and we have that riff on Communications Breakdown, right, is an incredible riff. Now, Black Sabbath have made the album Paranoid, which was originally going to be War Pigs, and it's a masterpiece. I think that's an incredible album. But they're all long tracks. There's no single on there, so they have to create a single. This is actually what happened. So they thought, well, what should we do? So they basically do a copy of Communications Breakdown. But instead of going, and Jimmy Page is a master of riff, Tony Iommi, another massive riff, goes he does that. Now that's a pretty cool riff. It's a pretty cool riff, but for me it is derivative of Communication Breakdown, and I've never been a big fan of Paranoid the track, you know, but this is what this list's about. If you say Black Sabbath to the general public, they're going to say Paranoid, right? But we all know that War Pigs, that's groundbreaking. That's groundbreaking on the same bloody album, War Pigs, right? Fairies Wear Boots, and of course the greatest riff on that album, Iron Man. Right, that album itself has got better riffs than Paranoid. Iron Man should be on the list, not Paranoid. In the middle of the track Sabbath Bloody Sabbath, when I was a kid and I got that album, amongst all that weird operatic stuff that they did do on that track, it drops down to a riff at one point, and the riff goes dun 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 dun, and then Ozzy goes for that big note, you know, and you hear him, he like does a run up, doesn't he, from about 4 miles away. You know, Tony's there, Geezer's there. You ready, Ozzy? It's this for me. That is the heaviest, greatest riff of all time. If you said, what's your favourite riff, Andy, I would say that little riff in the middle of Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath, when Ozzy goes like a bloody siren starting up. It's an incredible thing, you know. Ozzy doesn't need to hit the notes. He doesn't need to hit the notes square on. He's not Ronnie James Dio. He doesn't. He just. I mean, he's going to hit it at some point, isn't he? It's just a moment of sublime beauty. I have done a video on Black Sabbath, and I think it's one of my funniest videos because I love Black Sabbath, but they're very difficult to talk about without, you know, exposing the complete ridiculousness of that band. So, that's my thoughts on Paranoid. Shouldn't be Paranoid. Black Sabbath should be on there about 5 times, and they're not. That's rubbish. Right, number 20, Thunderstruck by AC/DC. Right, AC/DC had a huge MTV hit in the 1980s with Thunderstruck, didn't they? Right, but it's not their best riff. Again, AC/DC. And now, above that, they've got Back in Black. And then Back in Black is an incredible riff. But what about this? Hard to tell. That's just mind-blowing. You know, I believe that there's very few bands that could take a D chord, I think it's a D chord, and go, and then you can go, and everyone goes, oh yeah, that's AC/DC. How do we know that's AC/DC? Because Malcolm Young, who's the guy that wrote the riffs, was a genius, and he was able to take very simple open chords and turned them into things that were so iconic and pointed to what the band was about, you know. Thunderstruck, I think it's got that funny sort of tappy thing, hasn't it, that he does. And it's a good riff, but it's by nowhere near at the same level as or, you know, or Let There Be Rock, or Highway to Hell, or Touch Too Much. You know, there's just so many incredible riffs from AC/DC. I don't think Thunderstruck. Back in Black's incredible. Right, number 17, Seven Nation Army by the White Stripes. Without a doubt, there's a couple of riffs that all my young students play and it gets people into playing the instrument. One's Enter Sandman, the other one is Seven Nation Army by the White Stripes. It's absolutely mind-blowing. The White Stripes were such an incredible band. I've done a video on Meg White, if you want to check that out, where I sing her praises and sing that band's praises. That was one of the last hurrahs of proper rock music, I think, that band. Number 6, Rebel Rebel by David Bowie. Yeah, good riff. You know, David Bowie didn't do that many riffs. He wasn't a riff meister, but that's a cool riff. Johnny B. Good. Wow, right. Johnny B. Good. Chuck Berry. Chuck Berry is the first rock and roll guitar hero. You know, there's no AC/DC without Chuck Berry. Johnny B. Good opens up with an iconic solo where Chuck goes, and then it goes into a blues. It goes into a blues, sort of shuffly blues thing. There's no riff there. Johnny B. Good. This is the problem I have with this list. Is there's no riff there. There's an incredible guitar break. Right now, that guitar break, you know, what we're hearing really is that first phrase is it's like T-Bone work at Elmore James, isn't it? That's Elmore James, isn't it? That there is Elmore James, and then the second lick he plays is straight out of bebop. That's like Charlie Christian. Blues, bebop. That's the genius of Chuck Berry, to be able to pull all those things together. It's mind-blowing, you know. Without a doubt, if it was the greatest guitar break of all time. Yeah, that might be number one, but there's no riff. Once it goes into that, it's just one chord, 4 chord. I've got out of focus, haven't I? I went out of focus. I think the camera's trying to tell me, stop singing, Andy. You know, everybody who watches my videos goes, it's a shame you can't have any audio examples. I can't because I'll get demonetized, but I can if I sing them. Right? So that's what I'm doing. I'm singing them to you. Johnny B. Good shouldn't be on the list. It should be taken off. Sorry, Chuck Berry, genius that you are. It's not a riff. Number 14, Purple Haze, Jimi Hendrix. Bong, bang, bong, bang, bong. That flat for the, I was doing a 5 then. That is I don't know what to say about that. It's definitely a riff. Now this bit, which is what Purple Haze is all about for me. Down, 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 down. That's a guitar break. Down, bam, 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 bam. Da, 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 da. That's a guitar break. Hendrix go bum bum, go 1, and then the flat third 4. That's what that is. It's not really a riff. So we really trying to elevate on and that flat 5 riff at the start. We're trying to elevate that and say that's one of the greatest riffs of all time. I'm not too sure. I mean, Purple Haze is an incredible track, but again, I don't know whether that. I just don't know whether that can be classed as a riff, really. You know, Hendrix didn't do riffs so much. Spanish Castle Magic, that's a riff. A riff is a repeated phrase, so these guitar breaks, there's no repetition there. Right, and we have to differentiate a little bit between a vamp and a riff. So if I'm playing a chord and go jinga danga jinga danga jinga danga jinga, that's a sort of a riff, but it's more of a vamp. And that bone, that flat 5 thing that opens up Purple Haze, it's more of a vamp than a riff. I'm gonna get all anal retentive here and say you can't have it. That is technically not a riff. What you have there is a vamp, and we must differentiate between vamps and riffs. I do agree with that. Number 12, we've got Born to Be Wild by Steppenwolf. Get your motor running, head out on the highway, looking for the chords, bang, born to be wild. I mean, again, what's the riff? I mean, I know there's a riff. There's a riff that opens up Born to Be Wild. Is it like bam bam da da da? No, that's the Rolling Stones, isn't it? I cannot think of what the riff in Born to Be Wild is. Where's the riff? Now we get into, we've got 3 tracks here where I don't know whether they've got riffs. I hope this doesn't go on many more because it's upsetting me. Right, number 11, we've got I Can't Get No Satisfaction by the Rolling Stones. What a riff. You know, I'm going to tell you a story about it. My mentor is a guy called Kevin Gammon. Kevin Gammon was the guitarist in the Band of Joy with Robert Plant and John Bonham, and he has had a whole illustrious career. He's one of my best friends, and he's my mentor in life. An incredible musician that I met when I was very young, and you know, he got me my first position teaching, and Kev got me in the band with Robert Plant, so I owe him a lot. Back when he was playing with Jimmy Cliff in the mid-60s, he sold a guitar to Keith Richards. And once Keith had this wonderful guitar that belonged to Kev, he was inspired by that guitar, playing that guitar, to write I Can't Get No Satisfaction. So my friend is involved in the creation, Kevin Gammon, the legend that is Kevin Gammon. It was involved in the creation of the I Can't Get No Satisfaction riff. Right. Number 10, we have Sweet Home Alabama. That's a cool riff. It's almost verging on a vamp, you know, it's just 3 chords. but it's the way they're picking it and playing it, and it's that sort of country riff, and I absolutely love Lynyrd Skynyrd. They are one of my favourite bands of all time. They really are. And if Sweet Home Alabama, for how much it's been played to death, but when it comes on, I just love it. I just love that tune. I don't know why. And a lot of it's got to do with that incredible riff, you know. So another sort of, you know, country picking riff is Walk This Way by Aerosmith. That's a cool riff, that is. They deserve to be there. Then we have Every Breath You Take by The Police. Without a doubt, that could easily be in the top 3 for me. Every Breath You Take. Andy Summers really reinvents guitar playing at this point in time, and he is able to take, and this is the real genius. There's riffs, and then there's riffs that support the song that hint at the chord changes. You know, you can have a riff and it's basically modal. It just exists static. But with Every Breath You Take, you feel that, you know, Sting's written this song and it has these chord progressions. Now, I was watching an interview the other day, and I'm not too sure whether Sting said that he came up with that riff, actually. I'm not too sure. And I can't give you the facts here because I'm not prepared. But it'd be interesting if that's Sting's riff and not Andy Summers. I don't know. I'm sure we will find that out in the comments down below. So let's move on to number 7, Beat It by Michael Jackson. In brackets, Eddie Van Halen, right? Eddie Van Halen came in and did the guitar solo, and it's incredible. He didn't do the riff. He's not even playing the riff. I'm pretty sure that... I'm pretty sure that's not Eddie Van Halen. I could be wrong, but I believe Steve Lukather is on that playing the guitar. Shall we have a look? Shall we look it up and find out? I can't leave you like that. So I'm just going to go onto the old internet. You know, this is live research in front of you. Like I said, anyone who watches my videos will know that I do not prepare them and I just talk. And I need to find this one out because I'm pretty sure that he came in and recorded the solo on the track that was already written. He said it was written and composed by Michael Jackson. Beat It, yeah. Jeff Porcaro on drums, and Steve Porcaro and Steve Lukather, also Toto members, participate with synthesizers and guitar and bass respectively. So it's basically Toto on this track, and it's an Eddie Van Halen's guitar solo, which it was added by Eddie Van Halen. So yeah, he didn't play the riff. I'm pretty sure I was right, and Steve Lukather. I just wanted to double check that. So and it is a killer riff, but it really should say Steve Lukather there. And I'm pretty sure that Steve Lukather could easily have been playing a riff that was written by Michael Jackson. Without a doubt, that could be the case. But it's well deserving on there. So where are we at now? Number 6, You Really Got Me by the Kinks. Without a doubt, that's like the beginning. That's that British take on the blues. That's the British beat groups. You know, we got the Who and you got the Stones and you got the Kinks, and that moment in 1964, that is the birth of the heavy metal guitar riff for me, without a doubt, and that has to be on the list. It's a killer riff as well. Simple and killer. Number 5, Money for Nothing. It's an incredible riff. It really is an incredible riff, that is. And that riff, the sound of that riff, that is, I don't know what guitar he's playing. I imagine he's playing I think he's playing a Les Paul on that. I'm not too sure. He's definitely playing a Les Paul on the track Brothers in Arms. No expert on Dire Straits. But he's playing through a Laney amp. A Laney, of course, they're just literally up the road from here, right? Laney is a British amp manufacturer that I've never mentioned on the channel before. They have been around for a number of years. They were set up by a guy called Lyndon Laney, and I have met Lyndon a number of times. And I spent my, you can tell I haven't got much to say about Dire Straits here. I spent my New Year's Eve, right, the Millennium New Year's Eve, 1999-2000. I was playing in a band at that point, and it was me, the aforementioned Kevin Gammond on guitar, Robert Plant on vocals, and on bass was Lyndon Laney, the guy that created the amp. And that was the amp that was used to create the sound, that very distinctive sound of the incredible riff on the track Money for Nothing by Dire Straits. At number 4, we had Smoke on the Water by Deep Purple. Again, I thought that was going to come in at number 1. It is the iconic riff of all time. Again, I don't think that's even Deep Purple's greatest riff at all. My favourite riff by them is probably Bloodsucker off In Rock. Incredible. Right, now this is the thing that I don't understand. Number 2, we've got Purple Rain by Prince. So, I can't even get it out. What's the riff of Purple Rain? Am I being bonk? Am I? This is at number 2. This is the second greatest riff of all time. I'm playing it in my head now. So it starts off with that chorusy guitar that's playing chords. Are they saying that that's a riff? And then he comes in and does that mumbly thing. Purple rain, 4 chord. Oh yeah, it's great. Purple rain. Back to the 1. Down to the 6. Right. That's great. They're chords. They're called chords. All songs have chords. It's not a riff. Right. There's a great guitar solo on there. Guitar solos are not riffs. There's no riff on Purple Rain. Why is it on the list? I mean, I don't know what to say. You know, Prince is amazing, but he doesn't really write. I mean, there's Let's Go Crazy. That's sort of a riff. That's okay. Sign of the Times. That's a drum machine, really. I don't know what the hell's he doing. You know what people think? They go, oh, guitar. That equals Brian May. That equals Prince. That's how people think. So we got to have Prince on the list. So what's Prince do? Well, we did Purple Rain, and no one actually considers the fact that there is no riff on Purple Rain. Number 1, Sweet Child of Mine by Guns N' Roses. Fair enough. I can live with that. I critique that one to start off with. You know, it's a cheesy riff that doesn't represent Guns N' Roses. And on that album, if you put on Welcome to the Jungle or many other tracks, killer riffs, but that thing that has gone down in history. And again, I think it's because there was a period where it was one of these things that people could play on guitar. And people say, have you been learning the guitar? Yeah, I have been learning the guitar. Yeah, I have, yeah. What can you play? I can play the riff to Guns N' Roses. I'll play it then, and then they can play that. They can play that unaccompanied. Some riffs only make sense when you've got the band with them. What riffs are we missing off this list? What are the killer riffs? I haven't really thought about this. Talked about Black Sabbath. Led Zeppelin, we got? A Whole Lot of Love. Did I even talk about A Whole Lot of Love? I think I just glossed over and said, yeah, that's without a doubt. But is that their greatest riff? Is perhaps Black Dog. The most complex, twisting, mind-warping riff of all time. The riff where, they decided, Zeppelin go, right, everyone's getting to these riffs now. Riffs have become a big thing in the early 70s, haven't they? It's like big chairs, bulgy trousers, mains, and riffs. And we're Led Zeppelin, and we've got the biggest bulgy trousers, we've got the biggest mains, and we need to have the biggest riff of all time. And so they come up with... Now that's a riff. That's a riff, isn't it? A Whole Lot of Love's a cool riff, but it's really just a derivation of Muddy Waters riffs. Immigrant Song, that's a riff, isn't it? In fact, most killer Zeppelin songs have got killer riffs on it. There's billions of them. Why Whole Lot of Love? I don't get it. So I would have to have on my list, I think I'd have Black Dog. Led Zeppelin, they're the king of riffs, I would have Black Dog. Black Sabbath, I would have that riff in the middle of Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath. Can you run to? Incredible moment in rock there when Ozzy does that. You know, you can tell I've never really got over it. Sabbath have to be on the list for me. Rage Against the Machine. That's a killer riff. And then they go. That's a killer riff. Two classic riffs in the same song. Boom, 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 boom. The killer riff. Rage Against the Machine should be on there. Pantera should be on there, without a doubt. They had some incredible riffs. Mouth of War should be on there. I'm Broken should be on there. Rush have done some amazing riffs. And they take that flat five that Hendrix uses and they go. Oh God, why is that not on the list? You know, Rush, I then got Billion, Temples of the Syrinx, you know. Status Quo. Status Quo. No, maybe not. But what about the non-rock bands? Right? What about all those funk riffs that exist? Okay, now I know this is pushing it a little bit because they're just looking at guitar riffs. But for me, Chameleon by Herbie Hancock. That's a killer riff. That would be on my list of riffs. Birdland by Weather Report. Boom, boom, boom. Joe Zawinul was the king of riffs. Boom, 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 boom. So What by Miles Davis. So that's what I would have off the top of my head. And I would allow the non-guitar riffs, because you can still play them on guitar. That's the whole point of a riff. Before we go, and I leave you, right, I am going to, they've also put a list here of the 20 greatest guitarists of all time. So we have a quick go through that. Are you still here? Right, so there are those YouTube watchers, and they're the best ones. They'll stay to the end because they think, oh, there might be something else going on here. Andy will often go somewhere else. There might be a treat. Well, this is the treat. You're going to get two lists for the price of one here. So at number 20 on their greatest guitarist of all time, we have Joe Satriani. Now, I'll tell you, Steve Vai's not on the list. Satriani's great, but he's not Steve Vai, for me. He did teach Steve Vai, and he's great, but they got Joe Satriani at list number 20. At number 19, we have Pete Townsend from The Who. He wrote some decent riffs, didn't he? If you think about it. What about Pinball Wizard? Why is that on the list? That's a killer riff. Or is it a vamp? It's a sus chord to a major chord, is it? Maybe it's a vamp. Pete Townsend, yeah, Guitar Hero's got to be on it. B.B. King. Oh, we're not talking about riffs anymore, are we? Just talking about great guitar players. B.B. King, of course. Freddie King, yes. Albert King. All the kings we can have on the list, really. You know. Number 17, Kurt Cobain, Nirvana. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, these lists seem so ridiculous, you know, because Kurt Cobain was in Nirvana. He's really important. Great guitarist. He wrote. I mean, where's Nirvana's? Where's bloody Smells Like Teen Spirit? That's there. That's the other one. White Stripes, Enter Sandman, Smells Like Teen Spirit. And there's two. There's dang dang chicka dang dang chicka dang dang chicka dang. There's that one. Then there's down now. There's that one as well. You got 2 riffs for there. Why did Nirvana not make the list? What's going on? And then they got in the list of great guitar players. Number 16, they've got Jeff Beck. Brilliant. Number 15, they got Tony Iommi. Number 14, they got Eddie Van Halen. Oh, I'm going to get tired reading these. Number 30, I got Johnny Marr from the Smiths. Number 12, we've got Angus Young from AC/DC. Number 11, Chuck Berry. Number 10, Dave Grohl. So Dave Grohl, the drummer of Nirvana, is above Kurt Cobain from Nirvana because he just happens to play guitar in the Foo Fighters. Oh, people are idiots, aren't they? Number 9, Keith Richards. Number 8, Dave Gilmour from Pink Floyd. Number 7, Carlos Santana. I'm surprised. It's that Supernatural album, isn't it? It's moved Santana from sort of some, at one point, like, you know, fringe jazz fusion acts that doing all this weird stuff, to the mainstream. Santana's is there on the mainstream. Number 6, we've got Jimmy Page. Above Jimmy Page, we've got Slash from Guns N' Roses. Number 4, Mark Knopfler from Dire Straits. I tell you, the Sky Arts, they did not find some Dire Straits fans out there. But of course, you would, wouldn't you? It's got to be a Sky Arts audience for Dire Straits to have figured so highly on this list, right? Dire Straits audience, Sky Arts, it's the same thing, isn't it? It's the same thing. You know, it's people who have done well. They've done well for themselves, haven't they? They did well for themselves in the 80s, and now they sit down and go, what should we watch? Did you put a bit of Sky Arts on? I do believe they got a documentary on Dire Straits. Oh, I did like Dire Straits back in the 80s when I was some yuppie, you know, stuck-up, uncool type that was more interested in doing my accountancy qualification than I was listening to Slayer. You know, and oh my God, I remember them with their pink bloody pastel outfits on, trying to ram down bloody Alchemy, that live album. Oh, have you heard? He's incredible. Now, mate, I'm into Alan Holdsworth. So, that's why I got number 4 is Mark Knopfler. Number 3, Eric Clapton. It's definitely, you know, I mean, I dared to say that Eric Clapton was on par with Jeff Beck, and everyone hated me for it, but Sky's audience, that goes without saying. Number 2, Jimi Hendrix. And then number 1, and he's a great guitarist, but the greatest guitarist to the Sky Arts audience is Brian May from Queen. Right, now, of course, watchers of my channel, of course Alan Holdsworth's not on there. Alan Holdsworth is not going to be on there. You'd be a fool to think Alan Holdsworth would be on the list. Alan's not going to be on there. Then no one who watches Sky Arts is going to put down Alan Holdsworth. I would love to know when that was polled how many people did put Alan Holdsworth on. And I'm sure a few clever clogs did put Alan Holdsworth on. We all know he's the greatest guitarist that ever lived, right? We know it. I know it. You know it, right? But most people don't know it. And if you played them this, they wouldn't understand what he was doing. This is the whole point of how stupid all this is. These are popularists. These are charismatic popularists that were in the right band at the right time. They are not the best guitarists by any shot or way, you know. On this list, the technically the best guitarist on this list it's a toss-up between Eddie Van Halen and Joe Satriani. I would probably go for Joe Satriani. I'm pretty sure Joe Satriani will be able to play all the Van Halen riffs on this new tour that this band he's put together with Jason Bonham on drums and Michael Anthony and Sammy Hagar. It's going to be great. Satriani will have to play all those riffs, but whether Eddie Van Halen would be able to play everything Joe Satriani's played, I don't know. The rest of them, they're not there because they're the best guitarists in the world, right? The greatest guitarist that ever lived, I would say, because this is what you want, it would be Alan Holdsworth would be on my list. Lenny Breau would be on my list. Danny Gatton would be on my list. Ted Green would be on my list. Joe Pass would be on my list. Sean Lane would be on my list. Wes Montgomery, perhaps. But in just short, Stanley Jordan would be on my list. if you want to talk technical skilled guitarists that changed the world, that just pioneered stuff and were just mind-blowing, those are the guitarists that should be on this list. The ones I've just run through. John McLaughlin, obviously, we could put onto the list of the Aldi Meolas in the world, and the Pat Metheny's could go on there as well as all those types of guitarists. And then within the heavy metal genre, right, there's all the guitarists that they don't seem to know about. Nuno Bettencourt, George Lintz, Warren DeMartini, Uli John Roth, Michael Schenker, John Sykes, Yngwie Malmsteen, Paul Gilbert, Jason Becker, Greg Howe. I could go through a whole bunch of incredible rock and metal guitarists that should be on that list. These people won't crop up. We know why, and it's so silly to get wound up that Brian May's up there. Go and check the video out of Brian May reacting and listening to Nuno Bettencourt's guitar solo on Get the Funk Out, and he's almost in tears. Where the hell's Nuno Bettencourt? So it is what it is. The world is what it is, right? And the reason why Skyarts have the budgets to do this thing here, you can go watch that if you want, or you can come to my channel and see me for no money, right, no budget, sat here with no proper lighting, and you can tell it's going dark here because it's the winter, so it's going dark, so I'm slowly going more glowy and darker, and it's probably getting all sort of a bit pixely. I've got my little heater on the side. If you noticed recently, I've been wearing this jumper on every single video because it's in the room. I come in, it's cold, so I always have to put it on. I'm not just wearing the same clothes over and over again. Well, I am when it comes to this jumper, but that's the way I am. I'm sat next to this heater. I'm poor, lonely, dejected by life. Here I am, but what I'm doing is I'm bringing to you quality entertainment on a low budget, where we talk about these artists. We don't talk about this. This is something else. This is the mainstream. This is another world. This is music for people who aren't music fans. You lot are music fans, and that's why you're here. We're a minority. Okay? There was a period in the 20th century where music became the most important art form on the planet, and all these fringe creative bonkers people were able to come out and express themselves, and many are on that list. Right? But we don't live in that world anymore. Music is retreating back to being a minority interest. So let's just hold on to that, because that won't go away. Right. If you like this video, like it. If you want to see some more, you can subscribe and you'll see some more. If you want to support me, you can go to my Patreon and support me financially there. And if you want to support me without going to Patreon, you can go to my PayPal tip jar down below. It's very straightforward. Just click in, you can send me some money. And I promise you that my heater, right, look, this heater here, I didn't have this. This was paid for by Patreon, and this here, you're looking at it, it's chunking out heat right now, right? But I'm going to pay the bills, right? Whatever I make in ad revenue will be taken up by running this heater today. But this was paid for, this is actually paid for by the tip jar money. There it is. So those of you who pay me money, that's you bought me that, and I promise you, I will go and buy myself some special Andy Edwards YouTube jumpers, so you don't have to keep seeing this over and over again. Alright, I'm done, I'm finished. I'll see you on the next video. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.